Hello everyone, welcome to week 3 of Theory Thursdays. So today we are going to go over intervals. So this is for people who are more of the beginner side of music theory. I'm really excited because I'm thinking that this is going to be really helpful to a lot of you who want to know more about music theory, but maybe you just haven't really gotten into this part of theory yet. So just follow along with me. Hopefully you learned something, and let's get started. Okay, so the very first thing we have to address, what are intervals? An interval is the difference in pitch between two sounds, okay? So what you do is you take two different notes, okay, and we're going to compare them, all right? So what we're going to be thinking is, okay, is the second pitch higher or lower than the other? Okay, and by how much? That's basically what an interval is. It tells you how far away, the pitch is from the first pitch. So these are the kind of questions that you have to ask, okay? So let's figure out how to find an interval. All right, so I do want to ask you though, do you guys know about whole steps and half steps? Okay, because we do use these as a way to determine intervals. Okay, there are other ways, but this is one way. Okay, so if you do know about whole steps and half steps, then you might be able to use those to figure out the intervals. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'll show a picture that will demonstrate both half and whole steps. Okay, so let's take a look. All right, so you can see you've got our keyboard, right? So you've got, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F. So you got them all labeled for you. And you see in the yellow, there's a couple examples here. So B to C, they are both highlighted and it says half step, right? So because those two notes are right next to each other, that is considered a half step. Okay, so same thing with, let's say, G and G sharp. Right? Because G sharp is in between G and A. So G and G sharp are the two notes that are right next to each other. Okay, so G to G sharp would also be a half step. We'll do another example up on the right side here. We have the F sharp and G. Again, the G's right next to it, right? So we're going to call that a half step. Okay, F sharp to G is a half step. Okay, now let's look at this one. Okay, it says whole step here. So we're just looking A to B, right? Now, we do see there's a black key in the middle of these two notes, right? So that actually makes it a whole step, okay? Because we would go A to A sharp, right? Because it's right next to it. And then from A sharp to B, okay? Because again, it's right next to it. So anything that is two half steps, A to A sharp is a half step, A sharp to B is a half step. Okay, anything that is two half steps is considered a whole step. Okay, so just a refresher for those who might already know, and hopefully that was enough for you guys to kind of understand what intervals are if you did not already know. So we're going to just do a couple of examples here. So is D to E a whole step or a half step? Okay, so let's take a look. Okay, so we have D here, we have E here. Okay, so first thing we have to check is there a black key in between these two? That'd probably be the first question that I would ask. Okay, is there a black key in between these two? Well, yes, there is. D sharp or E flat. Basically, because there's a black key in between these two, okay, so it's going to be very similar to this, right? So what do you guys think? Is this going to be a whole step or is this going to be a half step? Okay, so the answer should be whole step. Okay, now let's move on to another example. So let's look at E. So E's right here, and F. Okay, E to F. Is there a black key in between? I don't see one. So that should be an indicator for you to help you in figuring out whether it's a whole step or a half step. And E to F is a half step. Now, next one, we'll do C. Let's go to this one. C to C sharp right here. So again, you see that it's going right to the next note, right? The white key right to the black key right next to it. So what do you think? Whole step or half step? Okay, and you should have half step as your answer. Very good. All right, so we're going to look at different intervals, okay? Now, if we take what we know about the whole and half steps, we can figure out different intervals, okay? So one whole step is always going to be a major second, okay? So from the one lower note to the higher note, if it's one whole step or two half steps, it will always be a major second, okay? Then a one half step is always going to be a minor second, okay? So you do see I have like a capital M and then a lowercase m. So the capital M is for major, okay? The lowercase m is for minor, always, okay? So just remember that. If you have to kind of shorthand it, make sure that you know that the capital is for major, the lowercase is for minor, okay? All right, so I'm going to show you a table that has basically all the common intervals and their number of half steps, okay? This is if you like memorizing and you feel like that would be the best way for you to learn and to know how to determine what an interval, like what the interval is. So this is kind of something that I just pulled from Google search. I would want you to look at this part of it, okay? Don't look at that part. All right, so that's just too confusing. That's too complex for what we're going through right now. But basically just look at those two, the half step distance, okay? And then the most common name. So this is what we're basically focusing on for today's lesson, okay? I don't go over these two in the PowerPoint, so I'm just gonna kind of briefly do it right now. If you have two notes, I'll bring over my pianissimo. So give me a sec. Right, so I have one pitch, and then the second pitch is the same note. So from this to this, well, it's the same note. So we call that a perfect unison, okay? Unison, right? United, together. It's the same thing, okay? Then perfect octave. It's the same pitch, but this one is in a different location, right? It's lower. Okay, so from here to here is a perfect octave. If you like just counting up the half steps to figure out what interval it is, then I would suggest you memorize this table because that will be very helpful for you. Okay, now if you don't technically like memorizing, I don't like memorizing, so there's another way to know how to determine the intervals. So again, if memorizing from a table is not your thing, you can also pull knowledge from major and minor scales. Even if you don't know theory that well, you should still know the difference between major and minor scales. Those are the two things that most people can just kind of determine, like, oh yeah, if it sounds happy or bright, then it's major. If it sounds a little bit sad, then I would consider that minor, right? If you can pull from those two scales, I think that would actually help a lot. We're going to go through this, okay? So a major scale has the following intervals in order, okay? So we're just going to do whole and half steps. So the W is whole step, the H is half step, okay? So I will pull this over here again. So this is major scale. I will start with C again because C is just an easy key to know because there's no black keys at all, just all white keys. So we start with the C, right? Now going from C to the next white key is a whole step, right? Right, this is a half step, this is a half step. Well, we know two half steps is a whole step, right? All right, so that's the first W. Next, from D to E, okay, is another whole step, right? We have another black key in between. Okay, so we have whole, whole. Next one, there's no black key in between E and F. So that is a half step. Okay, so we have the whole, half. Okay, then from F to G is a whole step, right? Because we got black key in between. Same thing, G to A is a whole step because we got this in between. A to B is a whole step because we have that in between. And then again, the last one, is there any black key in between? There is not. So this is a half step. Hopefully that makes sense. We're going to go and do a minor scale now. Okay, so a minor scale has these intervals. Okay, so I will briefly show these for you. Okay, so we're going to actually start on A because A also has all white keys for A minor. Okay, So we're gonna to here. That's a whole step. Then again, there's no black keys in between this, so this is a half step. Then C to D, whole step. D to E, whole step. E to F, half step. Okay, and then F to G, whole step. And finally, G to A is whole step. Okay, so I'll just actually play that scale for you. And same thing with C, just playing the white keys. Okay, starting on C and ending on the next C. Okay, and you should kind of get a sense now of the whole steps. Whole step, half step, whole, 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 half. And then minor, whole, half, whole, whole, half, whole, whole. Okay? Very good. Okay, so you will kind of need to know the key signatures in order to use this method effectively. Okay? So I'll just do a quick recap here. So the order of sharps, okay, is F, C, G, D, A, E, B. And then the order of flats is actually the exact opposite of that, okay? So we have B, E, A, D, G, C, F, okay? Now there are mnemonics out there that might be able to help you remember. So for the sharps, what I learned was fat cats go down an enormous bump. And then for the order of flats, we just learned bead, right? Because that's a word, bead. And then GCF, we did greatest common factor, okay? So if that helps you, you can kind of memorize the order of sharps and the order of flats that way. All right, so what about the bigger intervals though? Because everything that we were doing, the whole step, half step, that's only for basically second intervals, right? Seconds, right? Major or minor second, because the whole step is a major second and the half step is a minor second, right? So what about the bigger intervals? We have thirds, fourths, fifths, you know. So what about those? So again, if you like to kind of use your knowledge of the different scales, you can kind of think of it like this. The major scale always has these intervals, okay? Now, these intervals are only starting from the tonic or the root, okay? So I'll bring pianissimo over again. Kind of, sorry, I wish I could make it like smaller so you could see everything, but all right. So we'll start with C. Again, only using the white keys, right? All these white keys. Okay, so starting from this pitch, always starting from the tonic, from the root, okay, which is C in this case. Okay, we have a major 2. Yep, that's a whole step, right? 2 half steps is a whole step, and a whole step is a major second. Okay, now starting from this note again, the next note in the scale is E, right? That's a major third. That's what gives it that happy, bright quality, okay, is the major third in the major scale, all right? Then we have perfect fourth. Then we have perfect fifth. Again, I'm just going one note up, right? Staying on the C, and then each one is going up 1 note. Okay, then we have major 6. Then we have major 7. Okay, and then finally we do have a perfect octave. P, it would be P8, which I did not put in the presentation, but you can write that down. Okay, it'd be P8. All right, very good. Now, I will give you a couple of things that might help you remember if you hear the intervals instead of actually seeing it on the piano or seeing it on staff paper. There are a couple of tricks that might be able to help you. So this one is a perfect fourth. Now, if you can think of a song or a part of a song that incorporates this, the one that I always used was Here Comes the Bride. Here comes the bride, right, all dressed in white. But that very beginning is a perfect fourth. Okay, so if you hear that and you can sing Here Comes the Bride, just quietly to yourself. Just sing it or hum it, and if it fits, then that's a perfect fourth, okay? Now, a perfect fifth, I actually don't really have an example. Someone maybe can help out in the comments if you know of a good example for a perfect fifth. For me, because violin is tuned in fifths, I've gotten used to how this sounds. So I just know that that's a fifth because how open it sounds. Okay? All right, and then major sixth. So now this one, I do have something for you. So this one is the NBC little jingle. NBC, right? So the first two notes in that is a major sixth. NBC. Okay, so if you can hum or sing NBC and the first two notes fit, right? Then it's a major sixth, okay? And then major seventh. You could technically use Final Fantasy VII main theme. Right? So they do walk it up a little bit. But if that helps a little bit, you start on this note and then da 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 da. But there might be a better example for you, but that's the one that I think of when I think of major 7. Okay, awesome. Let's move on to the minor scale. Okay, so the minor scale has these intervals. Okay, again, if we start on A, okay, again, we're just doing this because we want to use the white keys, okay? Okay, so here's our A. Starting with A, our first interval is a major second, right? Because we have this in between. So this is a whole step, major second. Next one is a minor third, right? That sounds sad. Versus the major third, which sounds a little bit brighter and happier, right? So that's actually the difference. It's the biggest difference, and especially the chords. Okay, so this is minor third. Ah, here it is again. Perfect fourth. Here comes the bride. Right? Then we have perfect fifth. Okay, now we have a minor sixth. Okay, and then we have a minor seventh. And then we have our perfect octave again. Okay? So no matter what, if you see something that is a fourth away or a fifth away, chances are it's a perfect fourth or a perfect fifth because we have both of those intervals in major and minor scales. Same thing with a major second. We almost always have, right? This is a major second. This is a major second. This is a major second. This is a major second, okay? So no matter what scale it is, you should almost always have a major second, starting from the lowest note, right, in that key to the next note, all right? Always a whole step. Okay, so now, if you see an interval of D to F sharp, okay, now this is with enough practice, you should know immediately that it's a major third because D major has an F sharp in this key signature, okay? Now, if you don't know the order of sharps, order of flats yet, that's fine. If you can't look at a key signature on staff paper and know what key it's in, that's also fine. But that's something that you should practice because it'll help you so much with identifying intervals, okay? So yeah, if I see a D to F sharp, I just know, okay, well, D major has an F sharp and a C sharp. So because D major has those two sharps, a D to F sharp, that's a major third, right? So I will show you. Right? Again, sounds happy, sounds bright. So I just know that that's a major third. Now, yeah, this is personally how my brain works when I have to analyze intervals. I have done this for long enough now that I have all the key signatures pretty much memorized, and I just I can hear something, and then I do have to hum along, but I'm able to figure out what interval it is because I've just had so much practice with this. So if your brain doesn't work like this yet, that's perfectly fine. You can definitely train it to be like this, okay? You just have to keep practicing. And I'll give you lots of practice in this presentation, so don't worry. All right, so question, do I have to know all of the intervals in a scale? No, you don't. Okay, so if you memorize or you can figure out the intervals of each note starting from the tonic root, then that should be more than enough, okay? So if you're trying to figure out an interval, okay, pretend that the lowest note is the tonic. Okay, from there you should be able to figure out the interval, all right? So say we have those two sharps, right? We have the F sharp and C sharp, all right? All right, so we have those two sharps. All right, now let's say I give you E to B. Okay, so we gotta keep those sharps in mind, okay? And you can kind of figure out, all right, well, what does E major have? E major has 4 sharps, right? And I can't do the rest because my MIDI controller is not big enough. But basically, this is a perfect fifth. Okay, if you roll it up, major second, major third, perfect fourth, perfect fifth. You should be able to figure out the intervals as long as you have that kind of basic knowledge of major and minor scales, okay? All right, so let's do some practice. All right, so first, what is C to E? Okay, what interval is that? Okay, so first thing we have to do, okay, check the number of half steps, okay? And then, after you do that, you can check the table from the previous slide, okay? Or if you do know the key signature of C major, you should be able to figure out what interval it is. Okay? You can pause if you need more time, but I will go ahead and give you the answer. Okay? It is a major third. Okay? So starting from C, right? That sounds pretty bright and happy. Awesome. Let's do another one. What interval is F to B flat? Okay, so again, check the number of half steps if that's the preferred method, and then check the table from the previous slide. All right, so F. What's the key signature in F major? We'll just kind of stick with major for now. All right, so key signature of F major. Well, there's one flat, and it is B flat. Okay, awesome. So then walk up F and B flat. Can you sing any of the examples that I gave you? Okay, I'll go up an octave so I can sing it. Here comes the bride. So let's say perfect fourth. Awesome. All right, we're almost done. Do a couple more. So let's check C and A. All right, again, if your preferred method is to check the number of half steps and then check the table, that's absolutely fine. Go ahead and do that, okay? But if you, again, would prefer to see it and hear it, okay, again, what key signature is C major? Is there an A in C major, right? Because if we count up the steps, then we can kind of figure out what quality it is, right? Is it a minor? Is it major? What is it exactly? So we'll start with the C. Okay, this is 2, right? This is second, this is third, fourth, fifth, sixth, which is A. So it's sixth, but what kind of sixth? Is it a major sixth or is it a minor sixth? Okay, so you have to figure that out based on your knowledge of major and minor scales. And if you can sing something. And here is the answer. Okay, major sixth. Okay, awesome. One more, I think. We have E to A sharp. Okay. So again, check the number of half steps, then you can check the table. Okay, or you can kind of determine based on your knowledge of major and minor scales. Now E, pretend we have an E major scale. Okay, so what's the key signature of E major? Well, we have 4 sharps, okay? We have F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, and D sharp. Do we have an A sharp? No, A sharp is not part of the key signature. So we're going to have a very interesting interval because of this. So we'll do E to A sharp, okay, which is technically the same thing as B flat, okay, technically, but in this case it's A sharp. Ooh. That might sound familiar to some of you who have watched my other videos. Okay. All right, so here's the answer. It is an augmented fourth. Okay, so when you have augmented, it's A. When you have diminished, it's D. Okay, that's how it's notated for shorthand. Okay, or you can just call it a tritone. Okay, because that is what it is. Again, tritone means these 2 notes are 3 whole steps away. E to F sharp, right? That's a whole step. F sharp to G sharp is a whole step. G sharp to A sharp is also a whole step. Okay? That's our tritone. Awesome. All right, so let's try to identify intervals on staff paper now. Okay? So we have this example. Now, notice how they're pretty much the same, the top and bottom. This one has them separated, and then this one has them on top of each other like this, okay? So usually if you can just rewrite it so that they're on top of each other, I think it's a lot easier to determine the intervals, okay? So we'll always start on the lowest, right? The lowest note, all right? So in this case, we have this one and this one, and we have this one and this one, right? And then it also shows this one and this one, okay? So we'll start with the first one, okay, which is D. This is D to F, okay? F here. So D to F, okay? So I want you to either count how many half steps that is and then check the table, or I want you to play it and then see if you can determine what the actual, what the interval is. Okay, so I will play it. Okay, that's D. That's F. Okay, again, you can count half steps or you can look and determine, based on your knowledge of major and minor scales, what the interval is for that one. Okay? Let's actually move on now. Let's try the next one, which is D to the next note is G. Okay? Again, you can check half steps, or you can use your knowledge of the different scales to determine. And there might be a song that you might be able to sing that could help. All right, and let's do the last one, which is F and G. Okay, again, check half steps or figure out, based on your knowledge, what kind of interval this is. Okay, so first one, we have D and F. Okay, that one is a minor third. Okay, next one, D and G, perfect fourth. Remember, here comes the bride. Perfect fourth. Okay, and then the last one, F to G, that is a major second. Okay, awesome. Let's try this one. Okay, so now this one, I just wanted to help you if you're not sure how to really count these. So these are all triads, which I did go over in my first video, different triads. See how they're stacked nice and neat like this? Okay, if you have them stacked nice and neat on all lines or all spaces, okay, we always start with the lowest one. Okay, the next note above that one, in the case of a triad, will always be a third. Okay, and then the one above that will always be a fifth above the lowest note. Okay, so you can always think, okay, well, this is stacked just like this, right above, right on top of this one. So this must be a third of some kind. Okay, and then you can determine from there, based on how it sounds, or you can count the half steps, whether it's a minor third or a major third. Okay, and then I think that will help a lot, actually, if you kind of just know this is a third and know this is a fifth. Okay, because again, this is first, this is a second if there is something here. Okay, this is a third, fourth is this line, then fifth will be this one, sixth will be this line, seventh here, and then the octave will be here. Okay, so again, you just count up. So this is always 1. Okay, whatever the lowest note is always 1. Then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so here's a resource for you guys. Okay, I would want you to take a look at this. Okay, try to memorize this if you can. I would focus more on the major keys, but knowing the minor keys as well is pretty beneficial. And you do notice that the minor keys are also all lowercase, right? So that's kind of just how we determine the difference. Major is always uppercase, and then minor is always lowercase, okay? Then taking this table, okay, I would maybe want you to memorize it, just look at it for a bit, try to take some notes, and then what I'd want you to do is look at this table here, this picture. If you have staff paper, I would try to rewrite these, and then you can label the different keys for that. So that maybe it could be kind of a guide for you. So you can kind of determine, okay, well, if I have D major with 2 sharps, all right, and then I'm trying to identify an interval, and it starts on D, but then it goes to a B flat, well, B flat's not part of D major, so it has to be something else, correct? So I think that'll help a lot. Okay, and then in the description box of this video, I am going to post a link to a virtual piano that I use quite often if I don't have access immediately to a piano or a keyboard. I'm lucky that I have my MIDI controller here, but if you don't have access to an actual piano or a MIDI controller, then you can definitely use this virtual piano to help you figure out different intervals, okay? So definitely check that out. It's very beneficial. It's very useful. Okay, and then finally, extra practice. Okay, so if you want to do more interval practice to really train your ear to determine the different kind of intervals, what I did is I actually recorded a video with my friend, and we were playing the ocarina in Animal Crossing New Horizons, the game that just came out not too long ago. And what we're going to do is we're going to hold a note on the ocarina for maybe 10 seconds. In that time, I want you to write down what interval you think it is. Okay, then afterwards, I will show you what the interval actually was. Okay, have a piece of paper and a pencil ready so you can write down your guesses for each interval.